So, a couple of videos ago, I took a look at the biological influences behind Disney's Amphibia, and you know what? I love doing it. So today, we're taking a look at the Owl House, and to help out with this video, I've brought on an Owl House fan and fellow YouTuber, Cameron Galaxy.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, rather than looking at the science behind the show, movie, or video game, we're going to be talking about the cultural influences behind Disney's animated gem, The Owl House, which recently finished its first season.
Now, if you're not aware of this show, let me give you a little backstory. The Owl House was created by American animator Dana Terrace, a relatively recent addition to Disney's TV animation staff, working on multiple Disney shows as a storyboard artist, including Gravity Falls, DuckTales 2017 reboot, and Tangled: Rapunzel's Adventure. This culminated in Terrace becoming the executive producer and writer for The Owl House, which was first pitched in 2016.
The Owl House focuses on a self-assured and quirky little girl named Luz Noceda, who accidentally stumbles into a magic doorway leading her to the magical demon realm of the Boiling Isles. There, she befriends a rebellious lady named Ida, the Owl Lady, a tiny warrior demon named King, and various other demons and mythical creatures along the way. Throughout the show, Luz pursues her mythical dreams of becoming a magical witch by first becoming Ida's apprentice and later joining the Boiling Isles magical school named Hexide.
Now, obviously, there isn't much we can talk about from a scientific point of view, as this is so far into the realms of fantasy. So instead, what we're going to discuss are some of the possible inspirations and mythological references behind the inhabitants of the Boiling Isles.
Let's start our tour through the inhabitants of the Boiling Isles by looking at the isles themselves. The story behind the area is that all the cities in the show are built upon the dead remains of a titan, which is best exhibited by the still beating heart of a skeleton inside the Emperor's castle. Now, of course, there are many different cultures which have different forms of giants or titans, but the titan on the Boiling Isles is far more Attack on Titan rather than the titans you see in Disney's Hercules.
But these depictions of titans are way off the original Greek illustrations, which depicted the titans as humanoid in structure. They acted as pre-Olympian gods, with one particular titan, Kronos, being the father of the first generation of Olympian gods: Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hestia, Demeter, and Hera. In fact, the only reason that the Olympian gods took over is because of a 10-year war called a Titanomarchy, which resulted in Kronos being defeated and the rest of the titans being banished to the deep abyss of Tartarus. However, the true origins of these titans may not even be Greece. In fact, it's generally accepted that this mythology came from the East, specifically the cultures of the Hurrians, Hittites, and Babylonians.
What about other giants? Where do they come into this?
Well, there are giants in many different European cultures, from the drunken Norse giant Hrungnir to the Greek myth of Atlas, who was an ex-titan made to hold up the sky. For the most part, these titans mainly look like humans, and if anything, we know that the titan of the Boiling Isles is nowhere close to a human, with the huge horns on top of its skull. Japanese folklore has Oni, hideous red demons which are one of the greatest icons of Japanese folklore, being created when a truly evil human dies, or sometimes if the human is bad enough, even while still alive. One of the most famous Oni is Otakemaru, meaning Great Mountain Peak, an Oni that was so powerful and so violent that he's listed amongst the Nihon Sandai Yokai, the Great Three Yokai of Japan. Now, we're going to be mentioning yokai a lot throughout this video, and before we go any further, I feel it would be prudent to explain something. Yokai are spirits, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily evil like Otakemaru. In fact, many yokai of Japanese mythology get along great with people and can sometimes be really helpful. The only problem with these giants is that they'd be too small to be the titan that forms the body of the Boiling Isles, which would dwarf any of them, even Otakemaru, who despite being one of the most powerful yokai, was only 10 meters tall.
Okay, so we've established that this world is basically a monster by itself. So let's move on and start talking about the magical, rebellious legend that is the Owl Lady, otherwise known as Ida. Well, first of all, owls have been a part of magic and mythology for thousands of years, and they've been in tons of different cultures as well. Now, I wish I had time to tell you about all of them, but I'll give you the general idea by leaving a list of countries and, owl myths and a link in the description down below. Throughout the series, it's shown that Ida has a curse which causes her to become an animalistic owl-based monster, which can only be cured by an elixir. But what kind of mythical owl-based demons are there?
Well, in Japanese mythology, there's an owl-based yokai called Tatari Moke. This yokai is the spirit of a dead child which inhabits the body of owls. These aren't visually distinct from any normal owl, but they do tend to live close to the homes of the families they once belonged to. Not an evil demon in any way, and in fact, Totoke Maru are treated with respect bordering on reverence by the families they belong to, with many families taking care of owls that appear near their homes, as if they are the spirits of a dead child. This is not to say that Tatari Moke are always gentle though, as they have been shown to place curses on some households if the spirit inside the owl is vengeful. However, the Tatari Moke are often less hands-on with their victims, so what could be a better demon to compare to Ida's transformation?
Well, besides the Tatari Moke, there's also the Strix of Greek mythology. Strix comes from an ancient European mythology and is often described as a witch-like creature. With it often being depicted as a mix of human and bird, it's very similar to the type of animalistic beast that Ida turns into. It even has some familiar features such as elongated ears, wings, and large talons.
When looking at the original myth, there's even more proof for this being the inspiration for Ida's curse in the Owl House. According to the Liberalis story Metamorphoses, the Strix was a metamorphosis of Polyphonte, who was transformed into a bird as a punishment, with the Strix being described as a bird that cries at night without food or drink, with head below and tips of feet above, described in Roman tales as a bloodthirsty monster in bird form, pretty similar to Ida post-transformation. Okay, so this next one technically isn't a monster, but it's definitely my favourite reference in the show. In episode 7, titled Hooty's Moving Hassle, Luce, Gus and Willow perform a moonlight conjuring, a magical ritual which involves magic users trying to bring life to small objects. However, upon performing the conjuring, rather than causing a Beefy Bob action figure to come to life, they end up giving life to the titular owl house itself.
This involves it growing 2 owl legs, allowing it to walk around. Now, there are 2 big references to this. The first one being more obvious than the other is that it's a reference to Howl's Moving Castle, a 2004 anime released by Studio Ghibli. It's also based around the book of the same name, which features a walking castle. It's also a good old tip of the hat from the creators, saying that they're big fans of the movie.
However, the look of the house is actually much closer to Slavic folklore and the folktales of Baba Yaga. In these folktales, Baba Yaga is a supernatural being who appears as a deformed or ferocious looking old woman. And her normal dwelling? A hut, which usually described as standing on bird legs, usually chicken legs, which looks very similar to the possessed Hooty in the show. In these folk tales, travellers normally go in search of Baba Yaga to try and get help for their problems, and Baba Yaga does normally aid these travellers by giving advice or making tasks easier, as she's meant to have power over the 4 elements of fire, air, earth and wind.
Folktales based around Baba Yaga have actually existed for hundreds of years, with the first reference of it being in 1755. With many folktales saying that Baba Yaga can be found inside a chicken-legged hut, strutting her hut around isn't exactly her preferred method of transport. Instead, she actually prefers to fly out of the chicken shack's chimney while sitting inside of a giant mortar, using a pedestal as a rudder and her broom to sweep away any tracks that she may leave behind. And who knows, maybe it's actually comfier than riding in a broom.
So now we've looked at some of the many references seen in the main cast, how about we look at some of the other demons that the Boiling Isles has to offer?
In episode 3, Witches Before Wizards, we see Luce go on a quest set up by Adagast, a wizard who is revealed to be what Ida calls a puppet master. This demon is capable of transforming entire villages and creating physical illusions which can actually interact with real people. Many demons can be considered puppeteers and tricksters, but the most famous one is the Tanuki. Seen throughout modern media in Studio Ghibli's Poem Poco, Mario's Tanuki suit in Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario 3D Land, and most obviously Tom Nook from the Animal Crossing series.
This yokai is one of the most famous and is based on the very real Nycterutus prosinonoides viverinus, or Japanese raccoon dog. Though Japan makes their mythical tanuki rather more well-endowed when compared to actual tanuki. Now, these tanuki have powerful magical abilities, being able to transform themselves into various shapes and forms. In the tale of Shojoi Tanku Bayashi, a group of these tanuki scare away priests from a nearby temple by transforming themselves into the forms of the humanoid Hitome Kozu and Roku Kubi yokai. And this ability is not just limited to people and yokai. Tanuki are also able to turn into an entire shop using their large endowments if need be. Who knows, maybe if enough of them got together, they would be able to produce an entire city to fool an unsuspecting victim into getting rid of all their money. Furthermore, using their shape-shifting abilities, the Tanuki may try to pass off leaves and scraps of paper as money in exchange for goods.
Don't let the Tanuki's sweet face fool you though. Although many Tanuki were just messengers for the gods, there were also Tanuki who trick humans into eating them and spirit them away to become servants for the gods. They'd even transform them into giants and monsters to do so. This works pretty well with the shape-shifting puppet master we've seen in the show, but in reality, one Tanuki wouldn't be enough to produce what the puppet master does in the show, such as forming villages, items, and various townspeople. Though as shown, many Tanuki do work together in order to help trick humans. And with enough, they'd definitely be able to pull off what the puppet master has done.
Next up, we're taking a look at the Bat Queen, a palisman like Ida's Albert. This demon was introduced in the 10th episode called Escape of the Palisman, and it was surprisingly hard to find possible inspirations for this demon, which is kind of surprising given its unique design. The closest I found to a possible inspiration was the Chilean folk myth of the Chon Chon.
Chon Chon is the magical transformation of a powerful Calcus or Mapuche sorcerer, and has been shown of having multiple forms, one of them having the shape of a human head with feathers and talons. Though unlike the Bat Queen, Chon Chon's wings are actually just its ears, though these have been depicted as being bat-like with certain interpretations. Though, unlike the Bat Queen, who's always been depicted as just being a head, Chon Chon actually transforms itself by detaching its head from its body.
So there we go, just a few of the possible inspirations behind the interesting creatures found around the Boiling Isles from many different cultures. But this has only scratched the surface of the influences present in the show. So in the future, when season 2 comes out, I might do a second video on the topic. But until then, all that remains is for me to thank Cameron for joining me in this video.
And I thank you for having me, this has been a blast. If you'd like to check out any of the Owl House content I've done in the past, or any upcoming videos that I'm going to be doing, go ahead and check me out on youtube.com/CameronGalaxy.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, if you have any particular scientific subject or topic that you'd like to see me cover in the future, then please tell me in the comments down below. Or if you'd rather, send me a message directly on Twitter. If you want to support the channel even further, then you could also contribute to my Patreon. As a patron, you'll get behind the scenes access to the creation of all aspects of these videos, including script writing, editing, thumbnail design, and all the assets I make for the show, as well as being able to vote on what the next Science of video will be. But until then, this has been the possible inspiration behind the Owl House. I'll see you next time.